Every Slimepool video is a discussion. These are my thoughts and don't need to be yours. Rebuttals, thoughts, and elaborations aren't just allowed, they're encouraged. We live in extremely strange times. I'm sure everyone has felt that way at every point in human history. As we get used to the way things are, things change. The majority of us don't really seem to have much of an impact on how things change. So the world changes, the way we live changes, and things feel strange. But over our short span that we spend trying to navigate this strange place in space and time that we occupy, are we, at any point, supposed to enjoy it? I'm not asking whether or not we are enjoying it, only if we should be enjoying it. We're going to look at this from a few different perspectives to try to get a broad understanding of what life should be like and why. Part 1. Religion. The oldest way humanity has of processing and spreading large ideas is through religion. Religion gives us a community that doesn't just offer us something to base our beliefs and opinions on, but something that might offer us answers and comfort in disparaging situations. As someone who is religious, I can't fault the people who don't subscribe to a specific religion or religion as a concept. But by examining the religious perspective, we can hopefully understand what God wants for us, or at least what we believed a God would want for us. In Christianity, the Old Testament doesn't exactly provide a lot of hope that God genuinely wants us to enjoy life. It's in the Old Testament that we find stories of men getting trapped inside whales. God's most dedicated worshippers are given the hardest, often cruelest, or saddest lives. Job comes to mind. He was a man utterly dedicated to God. In return, God gave unto Job seemingly limitless suffering. It's not like Job needed to learn the lesson, God giveth and he taketh also away, because he surely knew that by this point in his life. The story of Job, like a lot of the stories from the Old Testament, is likely meant to be just that, a story. Something that should relate to our lives and explain something that is likely to happen to us. In this case, it's meant to explain why good people suffer. But something about God is also revealed to Job over the course of the story. We cannot understand God's way of being. We cannot get a complete idea of his motivations. Judging by the story of Job, we could conclude that happiness and suffering are only temporary states that we will inevitably experience while on earth, and that God simultaneously feels for us, but also sees these states for the temporary blips that they are. No suffering and no joy is infinite, except the joy that Christians believe awaits humanity in heaven. But the New Testament delves a little deeper into the dichotomy of joy and suffering and life and death. In the New Testament, specifically through the teachings of Jesus, we are meant to conclude that God is joy, that he offers us an infinite wellspring of joy, and that we can always find joy in him, no matter what. John 15:11 says, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full." So not only do we know that the Christian perspective is that joy and suffering in life are insignificant compared to the joy that comes after life, but also that through our suffering, we can find joy in Jesus. Now, somewhat sadly, this has remained relevant to modern times, where the poorest populations of the world find that their only solace is in their relationship with God and the church. I say sadly because the world would surely be a better place if people could have more fulfilling, happy lives free from the pains that come with poverty. It's great that they have any joy at all, but when the ultra-rich can claim to be Christian and have mega-churches confirm their every instinct of greed and live frictionless lives, I wish the ultra-poor had more to enjoy in life. So does Christianity preach that we should enjoy life? Well, I would say yes, but with a caveat. The ultimate point, as I see it, is to find joy in life, but suffering is a part of humility, and true joy must be separated from sin. Joy and suffering in life are temporary, and the things we pursue are temporary. So time spent seeking wealth, power, and lust may feel like you're trying to enjoy life, and maybe that is fulfilling. But the Christian perspective is that those things are not real and cannot compare to the infinite joy in the afterlife that Christianity proposes. You are supposed to enjoy life, but not in ways that harm others or distract from doing good for mankind. Enjoying life should come from helping those around you and helping others through inevitable suffering, not getting another yacht. The joys that life provides are wonderful, but should be enjoyed within moderation and in ways that aren't harmful to your spirit or the lives of others. Okay, so that's Christianity. Unsurprisingly, the other Abrahamic religions follow similar ideas. Islam also emphasizes the importance of seeking the joy that comes from helping those around you, and not the joy that comes from worldly possessions and power. There is a verse in the Quran that reads, "They rejoice in the life of this world, yet the life of this world compared to the hereafter is but a fleeting joy." Again, explaining that our time here is limited and fame and power are temporary. Judaism is quite similar in what it says about enjoying life. Everything the world provides is a gift from God, but if you're going to partake in the joys of life, it's important not to overindulge and to keep God in your mind with everything you do. Don't ruin these gifts with overconsumption. So the Abrahamic religions all seem to lead to the same sentiment. Life should be enjoyed, but not in ways that we may instinctually seek out. As we can learn from our poor friend Job, enjoyment also shouldn't be expected. Unfortunately, people love to advocate for their own sins. Moderation to someone praying on the grass next to a highway here in South Africa looks different to megachurch pastors, aka professional grifters, like Kenneth Copeland. But in the minds of hypocrites of that scale, hypocrisy is an impossibility. But outside of Abrahamic religions, there are other religions that might explain whether we're meant to enjoy life or not a little differently. Buddhism also emphasizes mindfulness and restraint. Buddhist teachings explain the importance of awareness and compassion as keys to joy. Again, much like other religions, finding joy and enjoying life are almost describing two different types of happiness. Finding joy to Buddhists comes from appreciation, mindfulness, humility, and restraining from partaking in earthly desires. Enjoying life seems to be separate from actual joy. Enjoying life through buying new things, drinking, and having casual sex are limited substitutes for true joy, which comes from compassion for others and being mindful about your being. Hinduism also teaches the temporary nature of suffering and worldly joy. But instead of emphasizing permanent joy in the afterlife, the Bhagavad Gita teaches that true joy must radiate from within. Worldly joys are distractions from true joy which is in you and must be brought out. The Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 verse 24 says, "Those who are happy within themselves, enjoying the delight of God within, are illumined by the inner light. Such yogis are united with the Lord and are liberated from material existence." All of these religions clearly have similar goals for the people who partake in them when it comes to joy and enjoying life. But does it actually help? Does religion's example for a joyful life actually make things better when compared to those wanting to enjoy life in ways that these texts describe as temporary? Well, actually, yeah. There is evidence to suggest that religious people are happier. I know what a lot of people will say. Of course, because dumber people are happier and only dumb people are religious. But I think the evidence we have does account for that generalization. An analysis by philosopher Leslie Francis into the psychology of religion as it relates to happiness found that across multiple religions and people of various ages, religious people were usually happier. These were found consistently between multiple psychological studies. Obviously, not everyone involved in these studies lived their religion the exact same way, and they obviously don't all have the same beliefs. But this does tell us that there is something to religion. It may be that a religious way of life is one that can guide you to joy, or it could be a lack of guilt, because religion is often used to shield people from their own conscience. Interestingly, as we'll soon see, a lot of philosophies take the same view on the temporary nature of life as religion, only they reverse the priority. Instead of embracing piety, humility, and mindfulness as a reaction to life being temporary, some philosophies argue that life being short means you should be taking on all of the things that you want. Temporary pleasures for a temporary life. Part 2. Philosophy. There isn't a philosophy that better encapsulates enjoying life than hedonism. For those who don't know, hedonism prioritizes the pursuit of pleasure over everything else. All that matters is the complete submission to fulfilling desires. Hedonism goes back a long way and is regarded as one of the oldest philosophies. And unsurprisingly, based on its appeal, it has lasted a lot longer than many other philosophies. Personally, I think a lot of people who are hedonists don't even realize they are. Part of its ability to last comes down to the fact that it has survived going through many changes. Over the centuries, the accessibility of life's pleasures has changed, and the things we get pleasure from have changed. The ancient Greeks may have considered giving in to lust, celebrating every night, and hoarding wealth. But they never could have known about infinitely scrolling through porn, pairing lean with Xanax, and the addiction spiral of gambling apps. Hedonism has taken a different form in the modern age. There are too many things that hijack the brain's pleasure senses. To me, in the digital age, hedonism is a death sentence. It's giving in to the things that are purposely trying to take over your brain. It should be noted that during its time as a recognizable philosophy, hedonism has taken on different forms and different interpretations. For example, Jeremy Bentham came up with a form of hedonism called classical utilitarianism. Based on our general overview of hedonism, this form of hedonism looks quite different. Instead of following what will give you the most pleasure in any given instance, Bentham suggests we should be making decisions based on what will bring the most pleasure to the most people. Sounds good in principle, but it has its flaws, which were pointed out by its critics. For one, as philosophy historian Nicholas White explains, difficulty was felt especially to lie with the idea of comparing the amounts of pleasure that two different people obtain from the same state of affairs or thing. For example, those behind AI companies possibly did think at some point that AI would be a net benefit for the pleasure of humanity. AI certainly has brought a lot of base pleasure to a lot of people, but I firmly believe that it is ultimately causing more displeasure than pleasure. But during their decision-making, they either thought people would just be okay with the drawbacks, or more likely, they didn't actually care, and instead went with what would make them money. Even if these tech CEOs were specifically classical utilitarian hedonists, do you think their bias and the allure of money would have been stamped down by a rigid dedication to their philosophy? I don't think so. So hedonism not only says we should enjoy life, but enjoy every drop out of it. But is this actually viable? Now we're getting to the heart of why we even need to answer this question. Hedonism is barely viable today because the people who benefit from it aren't the people participating. Hedonism has been exploited and captured by the ultra-wealthy. Hedonism in its modern form is so diluted and mutated by tech giants, politicians, and the economy that enjoyment in a hedonistic sense rarely just equates to giving up. So where hedonism says, yes, you definitely should enjoy life, life responds, but can we? Before we can answer that, let's look at what other philosophies have to say about enjoying life. Absurdism also focuses on the temporary nature of everything, not so much that suffering or joy are temporary, but rather that the effects of our actions won't matter in the grand scheme of things. It sounds quite anxiety-inducing. The enormity of the universe will swallow us up and make us insignificant. But it also alleviates anxiety. You don't need to worry about the long-term effects of this decision because it ultimately won't matter. Quit your job, buy an ice cream. It might matter right now, but ultimately it won't. Absurdism says there is no deeper meaning. There isn't anything to uncover. It's all absurd, so why not participate in the little agency we do have to its fullest? In this theoretical sense, absurdism pushes us to enjoy life, but practically we do need to take these things seriously. Yes, maybe there is no meaning, but the moment still exists. Just because it won't matter in 1,000,000 years doesn't mean it isn't happening now. So while absurdism also leans more to the point of enjoying life, again, it can't account for the lived experience for most people who don't have the benefit of accepting that nothing matters, because their very real lives depend on them taking everything seriously. I like absurdism, but I don't find the idea of nothing in the universe having lasting significance very compelling. On the other hand, nihilism, and specifically existential nihilism, argues very much along the same lines, that life has no meaning. But both Nietzsche and Sartre argue compellingly for solutions against perceived meaninglessness. Sartre pushes us to create meaning, inventing and reinventing yourself and your situation, deciding your actions, taking your own agency seriously, and being a witness to the things around you all contribute to meaning. Meaning is left to you as an individual. Things only matter because you decided they matter. Nietzsche, on the other hand, argued for work and passion. Nietzsche was an extremely passionate man who yearned for love and deeply appreciated all kinds of art. He argued that applying oneself, exerting oneself onto the world, and creating your own values and moralities are the solutions to nihilism. These are arguments that I find more realistic and more optimistic, despite the fact that both Nietzsche and Sartre are arguing for the embracing of suffering and the inherent power of humanity to outwill any suffering and create meaning where there is none. So while absurdism suggests we give up and enjoy what we can, Nietzsche and Sartre argue in their own separate ways that we don't give up and embrace suffering for what it is, something to overcome. This has a massive impact on our initial question: should we enjoy life? For once, the optimistic answer is no, not entirely. Our suffering might not bring us fame, it won't make us important, but in a meaningless world, our suffering gives us all of the power. It grants us the godlike power to create meaning, and that is amazing. This connects quite nicely with the Hindu wisdom that says joy must come from within. Suffering is an external force. Enjoyment is an internal force that we create, control, and enforce. So religion says you should enjoy life. Worldly pleasures should be enjoyed in moderation, and true joy comes from humility, mindfulness, and God. We're supposed to enjoy life, but suffering is inevitable. Philosophy says we aren't supposed to enjoy life. We must face it for what it is and find joy where we can. But what does our current reality say? Part 3. The lived experience. I'm not going to lie. Things are pretty dire at the moment. I don't need to go through all of the bad stuff happening in the world at the moment. because I'm sure you already know about it. We can turn to numbers like those provided by Ipsos that say we are getting less happy in the long term. According to their polling, most people are happy, but the average is dropping. Notably, there was a large drop for Americans and Canadians. In December 2021, 76% of Americans and 80% of Canadians described themselves as happy. In 2025, this is down to 69% and 67% respectively. 2/3 from both countries say their financial situation is what is making them unhappy. You'll notice many people specifically refer to their financial situation. We currently live in an age where finding a job seems impossible and money doesn't do what it used to. This obviously makes us concerned about our futures and makes us feel trapped in our own lives. Without money or time, we have no agency. My country, South Africa, is tied for the highest unemployment rate in the world, with some reporting 31% are unemployed and others reporting up to 34% of the population being unemployed. Consider that for a moment. Of the working age demographic, 1/3 of us are unemployed. I worry about my country and its people. Yet, in the happiness ranking, we aren't doing too bad. But I wonder, how much of that third was even polled? Were the poorest populations of our country, or of any country, asked if they are enjoying life? And once again, should they be enjoying life? Religion says they can through God or through themselves, and they should enjoy life. Philosophy says they should embrace their suffering and give purpose and meaning to themselves. They neither should nor shouldn't. They must decide that for themselves. But when you're poor and getting poorer, when the thought of having a home and 3 meals a day is the closest you can get to hedonism, how can enjoyment be up to you? What purpose can you grant yourself that will be fulfilling in any way? For the rest of us, as the ultra-wealthy get more wealthy from the work that we do, when ownership of anything is no longer a possibility, when we are priced out of life events like marriage and kids, how can we rationalize that the enjoyment of life is entirely up to us? I want to be optimistic. I want to say that the enjoyment of life comes from how we treat each other. It comes from community. It comes from following what you love. And in my heart, I know all of that is true, but it doesn't help me understand whether or not we should enjoy life. Maybe we should, and our ability to enjoy life is being stolen from us. Maybe we should all be religious and find joy in community. Maybe we should all be hedonists and allow the companies who want control of our dopamine receptors to have it. Maybe we should give up on the fantasy of enjoying life, embrace our struggles, and define ourselves by our ability to overcome them. We enjoy our lives through our ability to achieve things in spite of everything else. Philosophy, religion, and lived experience all have a home in art, and one film in particular engages with this idea in an interesting way. I'm going to spoil Blade Runner here because the ending encapsulates my thoughts quite well. Over the course of the movie, we see Roy Batty fight and kill in the hopes of extending his life. His life being that of an absolutely servile, synthetic being. But he holds onto a belief that his time, though temporary, is precious. Though he has had the worst possible existence, he can find the precious few moments that make his life feel meaningful. His desperate rampage isn't necessarily because he's enjoying life, but because he wants to fight for a life that he can enjoy.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
But without intellectualizing, without looking at the research of others and without any other opinions, I want to say we absolutely should enjoy life. We should. And if we aren't, why aren't we? I'm not a rich person. I'm not a poor person. I am extremely lucky to be born in the circumstances I'm in, and I can quite confidently say I am enjoying life. As a 20-something-year-old, largely living off of the charity of others, who feels trapped and helpless most of the time, who lives in a country that isn't safe and has very few opportunities, I can say I am enjoying life, and I should be. There was definitely a time when I wasn't, but it changed when I started doing what I wanted to do, when I started following my heart, when I embraced my struggle, when I decided to define myself. I am in a better position than I was 5 years ago, and in some ways I am in a worse position than I was 5 years ago. But the suffering and the joy, both from a religious and philosophical viewpoint, won't matter. So why not suffer the way I want to? Why not suffer with a YouTube channel that is entirely my work and my passion? Why not suffer with someone I love? Why not suffer in the ways I want to suffer so that I can enjoy what I want to enjoy? Why can't it be the same thing? So the conclusion I want us to think about is that we should enjoy life. But often the best enjoyment comes from suffering. You suffer the degree to get the career you want. You suffer the nerves of asking someone out to get the partner you want. You suffer the loss of goods or money or time when you help people or try to build a community. We suffer the revolution to improve the status quo. Decide what or who it is that you want to suffer for, and do it. We can enjoy life when our suffering is worthwhile. We should enjoy life.